Many individuals harbor a desire for real-life love stories to mirror fairy tale, culminating in a happily ever after. However, it's important to acknowledge that real-life couple relationships often do not conclude in a manner like those depicted in fictional stories. Many of these relationships terminate, seemingly influenced by the notion that love has a finite duration. While some relationships endure for extended periods, others are more fleeting. However, it is a universal truth that romantic partnerships are not everlasting. Even in enduring relationships, there exists an inevitable conclusion, akin to the commitment made in a wedding ceremony where the couple vows to stay together until death. This notion of separation will be the focal point of our discussion in today's examination of a criminal history. The tragic demise of Tatiane Spitzner, who fell victim to the brutal actions of her spouse, serves as a chilling reminder of domestic violence. So make yourself comfortable as we embark on a journey to Brazil to explore all the intricacies of this crime of passion, which could aptly be titled, My Husband, My Murderer. Brazil is often depicted as a haven of happiness, where individuals can partake in the exhilaration of a thrilling soccer match or the exuberance of carnival. This festivity is marked by the lively rhythms of samba and the spectacle of individuals adorned in elaborate costumes, dancing with fervor. Such cultural richness, however, may obscure the reality that grim occurrences, including murder, can also take place in this nation. Concealed behind the facade of costumes, there may lurk a murderer who presents a charismatic persona in public, but transforms into a ruthless monster within the confines of his home. This individual is capable of committing heinous acts, such as the murder of his own wife, akin to the actions taken by Luis Philippe Manevlier, the homicidal husband depicted in today's narrative. Tatiane and Luis first encountered each other at the onset of 2013. Luis was captivated by Tatiane's undeniable beauty, and as a result invited her to go out in August of that same year, with the intention of winning her over. Over time, a deep affectionate bond developed between the two, igniting a love that evoked strong emotional feelings in both individuals. Despite the relatively short duration of their courtship, they soon realized their love for each other and decided to progress to the next stage of their relationship. Surprisingly, on November 15th, less than a year after they started dating, Luis proposed to Tatiane, who promptly accepted. Her decision was firm, as she was confident in her feelings, a sentiment echoed by her family and friends. On December 3, 2013, she expressed her affection for Luis, and the couple was married and exchanged rings in Guarapuava, a municipality in the Brazilian state of Paraná. The day was considered by them as the happiest day of their lives, during which they vowed in front of the altar to love each other until death. Luis promised to cherish and love his wife for the rest of his life. However, as history will show, vows can sometimes be forgotten or broken. Regrettably, many of these men who pledge to prioritize the well-being of their wives end up becoming abusers, where the once charming prince turns into a menacing ogre. Before delving into the specifics of the criminal act, it's pertinent to provide an introduction to the key characters involved in this narrative. Tatiane Spitzner, aged 29, was a successful lawyer, specializing in labor law in her hometown of Guarapuava. She hailed from one of the most esteemed and influential families in the city, as her father, Jorge, was a well-known and affluent lawyer. He had the privilege of working alongside his daughter Tatiane in one of Guarapuava's most prestigious law firms. However, outside of her professional endeavors, this young woman exuded a passionate and lively persona. She had a deep love for dance and music and was notably sociable, traits that endeared her to a wide circle of friends. Her charisma was unmistakable, effortlessly winning the affection of those around her. Luis, aged 32, hailed from a reputable family and held a position as a university biologist and lecturer. He was known for advocating a healthy lifestyle due to his active engagement in various physical activities, including a passion for sports. Despite being surrounded by individuals with reserved personalities, He was perceived as an educated and cultured man prior to the crime. It was inconceivable to many that this university professor and dedicated athlete could harbor violent tendencies, let alone be capable of committing murder. This revelation was also surprising to Tatiane, who viewed her husband as the epitome of perfection. However, sometime after their marriage, she began to witness his aggressive nature, manifested through outbursts of anger and physical violence towards her. Despite enduring such abuse, Tatiane chose not to report her husband. She remained married to him for slightly over 5 years, until her brutal murder. Something transpired on the night of Luis's birthday on July 22, 2018, a day that had been anticipated to be filled with joy and positivity. However, it unfolded as a day marred by disputes between the couple. One account suggests that the altercation between the partners commenced when Tatiane arrived home a few minutes behind schedule, encountering her husband in a state of agitation as she had not adhered to the agreed-upon arrival time. Her delay disrupted their plans as their friends were waiting for them at a nearby restaurant to commemorate the birthday. Tatiane's tardiness was attributed to her visit to the hair salon, where she aimed to present herself in the best possible manner for her husband. Regrettably, the appointment took longer than anticipated, leading to her delayed arrival and exacerbating the situation with her husband. Luis expressed displeasure upon observing the arrangements she had made for him, responding with anger and resorting to insults due to her tardiness. Despite their tense tempers resulting from the argument, the two individuals ultimately agreed to proceed to the location where their friends had gathered to celebrate the birthday. Upon their arrival at the restaurant, the couple was greeted with well wishes for Luis's birthday. In this setting, any remnants of their previous argument dissipated as they portrayed themselves as an ideal couple, concealing any discord. However, as the evening progressed and alcohol was consumed, a new dispute arose fueled by jealousy. Tatiane claimed to have found evidence of her husband communicating with another woman on Instagram. In his defense, Luis explained that he had posted a story on Instagram upon the arrival at their restaurant announcing his birthday. Consequently, he received numerous messages from online friends, some of whom inadvertently included messages from other women. The women stated they were merely offering congratulations, and by not responding to them, he was perceived as being unappreciative. The issues within the couple were not limited to that particular night, however. They'd been entangled in a prolonged conflict. Tatiane's sister and one of her close friends revealed that Tatiane had been enduring domestic violence for an extended period. She confided to them about the ongoing abuse she faced from her husband, which escalated after the couple relocated to Germany. Due to Luis's pursuit of a postgraduate degree in that country, Tatiane's experience in Germany was distressing. Luana, one of Tatiane's sisters who resided with the couple temporarily, attested to Tatiane's unhappiness alongside Luis. Luana observed that Luis exhibited controlling and aggressive behavior towards Tatiane, often using derogatory nicknames and even degrading language towards her. Additionally, he would dictate Tatiane's clothing choices, sometimes forcibly changing her attire or removing her clothes. Furthermore, he exerted dominance in their shopping decisions, determining which outfits Tatiane could purchase. Within their household, he treated Tatiane more as a servant than a spouse, neglecting to assist with any domestic responsibilities. The question arises as to whether he was deemed suitable to make financial contributions to the market, given that all expenditures were covered by Tatiane's earnings as a lawyer. These funds were managed and overseen by her husband. In instances where Tatiane made purchases, such as clothing, without informing Luis, he would react by damaging or discarding the items, even if they were purchased with her own money. He removed items that had been purchased without his consent. Luana recalls that her sister requested her husband to engage someone to assist with household tasks on a regular basis, at least once a week. Due to her professional commitments, she was unable to manage everything independently. However, her husband declined the request, asserting that it was her responsibility as a wife to handle all household duties. In light of the various forms of abuse, it's noteworthy that the couple had abstained from sexual relations for an extended period. According to her close friend Juliana Santos, Tatiane confided in her that her husband had refrained from any physical intimacy, citing her failure to meet his expectations of an ideal wife, expressing hatred towards her and feeling repulsion. The friend advised her to consider divorce as the best course of action. However, Tatiane mentioned that she had previously breached the topic with her husband, who adamantly refused, citing concerns about dividing their assets as a deterrent. Furthermore, the friend suggested that she could report the abuse, given the visible signs of physical violence. The bruises on her body, indicative of domestic violence due to her fair complexion, tragically marked Tatiane as a victim. Despite being a lawyer with the ability to defend herself against such abuses, fear paralyzed her, rendering her just another statistic of femicide in Brazil and globally. Perhaps Luis harbored hopes for improvement, as he likely experienced significant tension being away from his home country. He believed that upon their return to Brazil, circumstances would change for the better. However, reality did not align with his expectations. Despite their return to Brazil and purchase of a splendid apartment in the Golden Gate building in the heart of Guarapava City, the anticipated transformation did not materialize as he had envisioned. In fact, the relationship between the couple deteriorated significantly, culminating in a tragic incident that unfolded in the apartment within the building, marking the unfortunate demise of Tatiane. Upon revisiting the events of the night when her life tragically ended, Tatiane confronted her husband about his correspondence with another woman. This confrontation led to his decision to abruptly end their celebration and head home. As they journeyed back, the argument escalated, with a security camera in front of their residence capturing part of the heated exchange that took place within their white vehicle before they entered the building. The images vividly depict a confrontation between Luis and Tatiane. Luis, seated in the driver's seat, repeatedly slapped Tatiane, who was in the passenger seat and attempting to exit the vehicle after the assault. Despite her efforts to escape, Luis restrained her by pulling her hair. Tatiane's attempts to flee from her husband's grasp were thwarted, and upon noticing an approaching car, she reluctantly entered the building's parking lot. Subsequently, more distressing footage within the parking lot captured the escalating aggression Tatiane endured prior to her tragic demise. Upon entering the garage of the building, Luis exited the car from his side and proceeded to the other side. He forcibly removed his wife from her seat, pushing her against the car. He's observed wrapping his hands around her neck, causing her to panic and attempt to flee. Despite her efforts to escape, he pursues her and catches up, only for her to break free momentarily. She makes a futile attempt to escape through the elevator, but her efforts are thwarted as Luis enters the elevator before the door is shut. The continuation of her ordeal takes place inside the elevator, where security cameras captured her moments of suffering. The footage depicted a persistent struggle as Tatiane, in her endeavor to escape, was forcefully thrown against the metal walls of the elevator, resulting in painful head injuries and causing her to collapse on the floor. Within the images, it's observable that the elevator doors reopen, prompting the girl to make another attempt to flee. However, her husband forcefully restrains her and guides her back into the elevator, demonstrating physical dominance over Tatiane. Until the elevator opens on the floor of her apartment and he takes her out of the elevator to enter the house, these being the last images in which Tatiane was seen alive. However, the events that transpired inside the apartment remain unknown. The only information provided by her neighbors was that they heard loud noises and desperate screams of the woman pleading for help. Regrettably, no action was taken by anyone, or if it was attempted, it was futile. Moments later, the security cameras of the neighboring building recorded the tragic incident where Tatiane fell from her fourth-floor balcony, an event that tragically claimed her life. Initially, both her neighbors and the police were inclined to believe that the fall was the cause of her demise. However, additional details regarding this crime have not been disclosed yet. Following the fatal fall, the security camera footage captures Luis descending shortly afterward to retrieve the body. He then transports his wife's body back to the apartment, presumably in an attempt to conceal the gruesome incident from onlookers. The perpetrator is subsequently observed carrying Tatiane's body into the elevator, placing her on the floor and then raising his hands in a gesture conveying remorse and shock. However, all of these actions were merely a pretense for the cameras, as if attempting to absolve himself of guilt. Upon returning to his apartment, he carried the body out of the elevator and was captured by cameras cleaning the bloodstains to eliminate any evidence. Subsequently, he changed his shirt, reappeared in front of the camera, and hastily left in his car to escape before the police arrived. In his haste, however, he overlooked the young woman's shoes, which were left near the building's entrance. These shoes became the initial piece of evidence discovered by the authorities before finding Tatiane's deceased body in her apartment. Despite Luis's attempts to evade justice by fleeing, he was apprehended just 340 kilometers away from the crime scene. While driving at a high speed in an attempt to cross the border into Paraguay, he was involved in an accident. He claimed that the crash occurred after he experienced a nervous breakdown triggered by the memory of witnessing his wife falling off the balcony. Initially, he stated that his wife accidentally fell from the fourth-floor balcony of their residence. However, he later changed his account, suggesting that Tatiane may have chosen to end her own life upon learning about his intention to divorce her, as he claimed to be weary of her baseless jealousy. Despite his statements, the police proceeded to release the videos depicting the various acts of aggression he had committed against his wife shortly before she fell from the balcony. Such mistreatment could not be justified, regardless of any potential jealousy on the part of the wife. And undoubtedly, many may question why Tatiane did not leave the situation, considering she was a victim of domestic violence. A question that many pondered upon learning that the woman was a lawyer. However, the situation is more intricate than commonly perceived. Despite the prevailing belief that escaping or recognizing abusive relationships is straightforward, the reality is quite different. Abusers often camouflage their actions behind a facade of an ideal relationship, exemplified by Tatiane and Luis, who projected a flawless image on social media and in the presence of their acquaintances. The extreme violence present in this situation obscures the abuse, making it challenging for observers to recognize. Additionally, the cultural norm dictates that enduring constant conflicts, managing jealousy, and even experiencing anger are essential components of romantic love. This belief stems from the misguided perception prevalent in society that such behaviors are considered normal. Conversely, abusive partners frequently experience confusion. One day, individuals may present you with flowers, while the next day they might become upset and shatter the vase. One day, individuals exhibit affection towards you, while the next day they may express their emotions through shouting. One day, individuals may exhibit affectionate behavior, while on another day they may exert control and attribute their actions to feelings of jealousy. One day you may be treated like royalty, while on another day you might be made to feel as though you are irrational and unlovable compared to his affection. One day, individuals may express affection towards you through hugs, while on another day they may resort to physical violence and attribute it to your actions that purportedly provoked their anger. Subsequently, they offer an apology, pledge not to repeat the behavior, and assert that their actions stem from their love for you. A common pattern observed among aggressors in relationships. Typically, abusive relationships commence with a sense of happiness, gradually transitioning into abusive behavior over time. Psychologically, numerous women remain fixated on the recollection of those joyful moments, yearning for a return to the past state of affairs. Women persist in their affection for their spouses, cherishing their victims even in the face of fear when their flaws are revealed. Despite inflicting harm and causing them to bleed, individuals persist in pardoning them, believing that complying with their partner's wishes may lead to a restoration of happiness. Over time, individuals may succumb to fatal outcomes when their bodies can no longer withstand further abuse. This was the tragic fate of Tatiane, who likely had numerous motivations for not separating from her husband, Apart from the fear she experienced, she harbored the belief that she would not be loved by anyone else if she left him. Abusive partners often instill self-deprecating thoughts in their victims' minds, making it challenging for them to break free. These individuals are experiencing distress due to their belief that they are unable to accomplish the task independently, which is causing fear. Let us recall the prevailing macho culture in which we were raised, which asserted that a woman of a certain age will no longer be loved. The notion that if a husband beats his wife, she must have provoked him in some way. The notion that in the event of divorce, individuals will become single, potentially leading to feelings of bitterness and unhappiness. Furthermore, despite Tatiane not having children, the fear of being unable to support oneself, the belief in the necessity of fathers for children, and other factors serve as barriers that prevent women experiencing abuse at home from leaving their spouses. While it is mentioned that Tatiane attempted to seek divorce but was unsuccessful, ultimately divorce is not the solution. The key to salvation lies in speaking out against those who cause harm and distancing oneself from those who inflict mistreatment. With this understanding, let's now proceed to examine the resolution of this narrative. Despite having been exposed to the graphic evidence of the husband's assault on his wife prior to her demise, there remains an unresolved enigma. It's been revealed through forensic analysis and autopsy that Tatiane had actually passed away well before the fall from the balcony. Investigation concluded that the primary cause of death was mechanical asphyxiation, indicating that Tatiane was strangled prior to being pushed off the balcony. The autopsy further revealed a significant level of alcohol in the victim's bloodstream, a plausible outcome considering her return from a birthday celebration. Additionally, the examination identified injuries, and the individual exhibited bruises on her skin resulting from the physical altercation in which she fought for survival. Additionally, she sustained numerous fractures throughout her body following the 40-foot fall onto a concrete surface. The individual also exhibited a fracture of the hyoid bone, a bone located in close proximity to the jaw. This bone is typically not fractured unless in cases of strangulation or suicide by hanging. Medical professionals attributed Tatiane's cause of death to strangulation, supported by the presence of handprints found on her throat during subsequent investigations. The depth of the fracture in her neck indicated the cause of death as ferocious strangulation, as evidence left no room for doubt regarding the young woman's demise. While Luis claimed that his wife had chosen to jump voluntarily, discrepancies arose that contradicted his account. These inconsistencies were not only evident from the findings of the autopsy, but also from other pieces of evidence indicating that Tatiane was deceased prior to falling from the balcony. This conclusion was supported by the absence of cortisol and adrenaline in her body, substances typically released by individuals moments before engaging in suicidal behavior. However, despite the abundance of evidence, Luis and his defense opted to refute the accusations by attempting to demonstrate his innocence. They argued that while he did strike his wife, his actions were not intentional. They claimed that his outbursts of anger were a result of the steroids and anabolic substances he'd been consuming during his gym visits. As his testosterone levels increased, his behavior turned violent. However, this should not serve as justifiable reason to exempt him from being held accountable for his actions. In fact, he made considerable efforts to avoid incarceration to the extent that his legal representatives argued that Luis suffered from severe mental health issues. Consequently, they advocated for his placement in a mental health facility rather than a correctional institution. The trial against Luis was delayed for over 2 years due to various procedural issues, including the impact of the pandemic. Finally, in May 2022, a verdict was reached, convicting Luis of aggravated femicide through cruel means, specifically asphyxiation, and of procedural fraud. This was evident in his actions of tampering with the crime scene by moving the victim's body and attempting to conceal evidence of his crimes. Despite the defense's claims of 23 irregularities and multiple challenges, the judge dismissed each appeal due to the clear evidence of the murder. leading to Luis's sentencing to 31 years and 9 months in prison for the murder of his wife. That sentence represented the maximum penalty under the Brazilian legal system. In addition to the prison sentence, Luis was obligated to pay 100,000 Brazilian reais, equal to about $19,000, to the Spitzner family as compensation for moral damages. Once the sentence became public knowledge, Luis issued an apology to the victim's family. However, he only acknowledged his involvement in the prior assault captured by the parking lot security cameras. He continued to deny any responsibility for the murder. Nevertheless, his denial lacked credibility as the judge, during the sentencing, presented a substantial amount of evidence that left no doubt about his guilt in the killing of his wife. The evidence also pointed to Tatiane as a victim of an abusive relationship that tragically led to her demise. While the verdict did not bring Tatiane back to life, the judge's decision signified a significant advancement in the battle against femicide in Brazil. Additionally, it's noted that the conviction brought a sense of satisfaction to the Spitzner family, as they believed that justice had been served, despite the fact that they will never fully recover from the anguish of Tatiane's tragic demise. While acknowledging the profound pain that Tatiane's family will endure and the lasting impact of the tragic event, it serves as a poignant reminder of the imperative to combat gender-based violence and domestic abuse. It underscores the necessity to advocate for justice and not succumb to silence due to fear or skepticism towards the responsiveness of authorities. When a woman experiences violence and physical aggression, the most compelling evidence often lies in the visible marks and traces left by the perpetrators on their victims. In cases where evidence or traces of abuse are present, individuals are unable to evade legal consequences. In this particular instance, it was widely acknowledged that the judge's ruling was founded on concrete evidence. Therefore, it is imperative that individuals do not wait for women to be fatally harmed before family members report the abuse they endure alongside their abusive spouses. For his part, the father of the victim, Jorge Spitzner, acknowledged the enduring impact of his daughter's absence on his daily routine. Tatiane had previously worked alongside her father at the law firm, making it inevitable for him to be reminded of her whenever he enters the office. Despite the emotional pain he experiences when recalling the circumstances that led to her absence, he finds strength in their memories to persist in his legal advocacy. He aspires for his daughter's tragic case to serve as a catalyst for increased awareness and action against violence towards women. Jorge emphasizes the importance of community involvement in preventing such tragedies, highlighting that timely intervention could have saved Tatiane's life. The individual eagerly requested it, indicating a reluctance to delve into personal matters. However, a prompt call to 911 has the potential to save a life. This is the exact message that Tatiane's sister, Luana, conveys on Instagram following the trial and tragic death of the lawyer. She established a social media page named All for Tatiane to raise awareness about femicide, a phenomenon on the rise in Brazil and around the globe. Currently, Luana's page has amassed over 60 followers who support her efforts to combat violence against women. Regrettably, based on a study, instances of female violence and femicide have not shown a decline in Brazil. An increasing number of women are falling victim to this crime. In 2018, the year of Tatiane's murder, reports from authorities indicated that at least 750 women were registered as victims of femicide in the 5 states that collectively account for nearly half of Brazil's population. Tatiane's case exemplifies the challenges faced by women living with abusive partners and underscores the legal interventions available for cases of violence against women. Regrettably, despite this illustrative case, the prevalence of femicide continues to rise. In 2019, a year after the high-profile femicide that shocked Brazil, 1,326 femicide victims were documented in the country. This increase of 7.1% compared to 2018 highlights a concerning trend where femicide rates are not decreasing, as evidenced by the tragic case of Luis and Tatiane. According to official statistics, Brazil recorded 105,671 complaints of violence against women in 2020. Despite the confinement measures implemented to address the COVID-19 pandemic, This equates to approximately 290 complaints per day, with 72% of the reported cases involving domestic violence. The perpetrators in the majority of these cases are identified as husbands or intimate partners of the victims. Complaints were reported encompassing the incidents of death, bodily harm, and exposure to physical, sexual, or psychological distress. Following this, it's imperative to raise awareness that femicide can be prevented in order to avoid the tragic scenarios where individuals lament, quote, "my husband, my murderer," or, quote, "your husband, your murderer." Whether you're the victim, a family member, a friend, or a neighbor, it's important to report incidents of female violence and to take action to prevent it. As we conclude this video, I invite you to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell to stay updated on the latest shocking crime stories. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you for the next video.